So Conor Casey, a big welcome to Control the Controllables. How you doing?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me, Dan.
It's a pleasure. I've had Andy Murray, I've had Iga Swiatek, but having the Instagram sensation that pops up on my phone every day, it's more nerve wracking than having these big superstar tennis players.
Yeah, was that a pop? Was that intended?
That absolutely was, and we're going to get into all of that. But as I do with all guests, Conor, I guess the whole motivation behind this podcast was tennis, right? And why tennis gets in our blood, and it takes us into many different areas. We don't just have the top tennis players in the world, but there's many ways we can use tennis. But go back all those years, and I can say that because we're pretty much the same age.
Yeah.
Where did it start? How did it start? Why did it start?
Well, for me, my uncle is a famous tennis player by the name of Leif Shiras.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a 1980s serve and volley, chip in charge, party animal, mullet guy, back when tennis was at the golden age, and you'd party all night and show up and chip in charge all day. So he married my mom's sister. My mom is the oldest of 5 sisters, and married my mom's sister, who was a Vogue model at the time. So they were like, they were just living a different life. It was like my model aunt and pro tennis player uncle. So naturally, I had
Why
an
not?
idol. Yeah, like how could you not want to be like that, right? So I just knew I wanted to be a tennis pro right when I saw him. And I was also lucky to have the Canadian, because I grew up in Canada, in a place called Mississauga. We had this thing called the Canadian Sun Life Nationals, which was our national tournament, and we had all the pros would come through my club every summer. So I got to be a ball kid from an early age. And I don't know if you were ever a ball kid, Dan, but like if you spend some time on the courts as a ball kid, it gets into you pretty quickly.
You know what? I don't think I had the focus for that.
Oh,
I think I would have been that ball kid who was in the corner, looking all over the place. But the question that jumps to my mind: Did you get the model girlfriend, the model wife?
I would say I did. Yeah.
Look at
She did it, and it's actually she did it. My wife Katie, beautiful, or everything. She actually did an underarm model. She's got the most beautiful armpits you've ever seen.
So it all worked. It all worked out.
It all worked.
And in terms of, I guess not to miss out the whole junior career, but you played a lot of junior tennis. You obviously were a decent level going off to play at Div 1 college in America.
Yeah. No, I was the kid, 3 years old, knew I wanted to be a tennis player, played juniors, decent under 12, real good under 14 in Canada, top 3. Then I went to the Orange Bowl. I'll give you the quick rundown. It's the classic. Went to the Orange Bowl and realized, oh my God, the world is full of guys who are ranked 3 in Canada. I got to rub shoulders with like Oliver Rokas, who was number 1 in the world at the time, and Simon Dickinson, I believe.
Dixon. So he was Simon Dixon's one of my best friends. So we were roommates for many years. Yeah.
So seeing a 14-year-old Simon Dixon, or under 14 Simon Dixon hit a tennis ball was just blew my mind.
Yeah.
I don't know if he even made it I think he got distracted. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, but you know what? He actually, he's in amazing shape now. He still plays a good level, but I don't know if he had quite bizarrely, in this sport's so tough, right? I don't actually think he had enough in his game.
Right.
He did get a little distracted. I think a lot of the Brits at that age, there's a lot of distractions out there, and there probably wasn't the best culture then.
Right.
But a bit of a funny story on that. I was at Aussie Open 2012, and I was working with Liam Brody, Josh Ward Hibbert.
Yep.
And we got the call from Paul Anacone, and he said, Roger needs a lefty to warm up to play against Rafa on Rod Laver. So Liam being the lefty, off we went to Rod Laver. And as I'm walking on to Rod Laver, I knew Federer a little bit from juniors, and and he turned around, and the first words he said to me actually were, "How's Simon Dixon?"
Oh yeah.
He said he was seriously good.
Yeah.
And that I think is a pretty big compliment coming from Roger Federer.
Well, there you go. That brings it all back, because we're all 1981. I was 1981. Federer's 81, and you remember those guys under 14 that played at the. Dixon definitely top 5 in the world, I
He
think.
was. He was.
So I played with those guys. I played with the Federer. Federer wasn't anything under 14 compared to
No,
Dixon.
no, he wasn't. And then Leighton Hewitt as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I played all that. I won the under 18 indoor Canadian nationals, serving and volleying and chipping and charging on every second serve, playing a different game. Then got an ATP point before going to college. Figured I would
Okay.
just burn through college and go pro afterwards, but got stuck on the slow courts of the SEC where you were at on LSU, and I'm lucky to have made it out with a racket.
And tell me that, going from to Oxford, Mississippi. I mean,
Yeah,
I was coming from the UK, and I was like, I thought I was moving to New Orleans because back
yeah,
in that time we didn't have websites, or we didn't have any like Instagram, or we didn't know anything.
right.
So
Yeah,
I got picked up, bless him, Jay Hurd, legend on the LSU team, proper
yeah.
college. You need to get Jay Hurd on your Instagram. You would love him.
All
He would
right.
be he would be an amazing kind of character for you. But he picked me up, and I was convinced this guy was at least in the top 2 of the singles lineup at LSU. He then told me it was an hour and a half to Baton Rouge, which I'd never heard of. And
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I thought I was going to New Orleans. I hit with him the next day and found out that he was a walk-on. And the walk-on to a Brit was like, what's a walk-on? And he was a walk-on that was pretty low down in the team, but I realized the value pretty fast. But in those southern states, you wake up quite fast to these small towns. Small town in Mississippi, I would imagine, was very different.
Oh yeah. It was the closest town to us was Memphis, hour and 15 minutes. But yeah, I came from Toronto, where it was like music was a big thing in your life when you're 18, 17, and I was into the drum and bass, the London jungle scene. Uh, the baggy jeans, visor, XL jacket, and frosted tips hair. And when I moved to the deep South, Oxford, Mississippi, with the good old boys and their tight khakis and comb forward hair, I didn't know, I was in another world.
And then you chuck 5 Swedes in the team as well.
Yeah, and then you got 5 Swedes on the team. Now Swedes they have a magical aura. If these good looking Swedes, they travel well. Uh, they can
Is
fit
it
in
true
anywhere.
the naked Swedes is what we always hear in Europe? That
Yeah,
they're always naked, these Swedish guys.
absolutely. Taking saunas.
And it wasn't normal, right? Because back in nowadays, it's like you have an argument with the coach in college, and you're on the transfer market or the
Right.
portal or whatever it is. Whereas it wasn't really normal back in our day. It was like that's kind of where you are. But you lasted 1 year under Coach Chadwick.
Yeah.
We could do a whole podcast on Chadwick himself, but.
Right.
How come you moved on? What was that? And then obviously you went to Ty Tucker, I guess, at
Yeah,
Ohio State.
I did. So, it was two things. Number one, I never really got over the culture shock. I think at that age, I was pretty into my social standing, and the fact that I couldn't really integrate well into the frat life and stuff like that. I rather than like make the adaptations and cut my hair to blend in, I actually went the other way and started to just like lean more into being an outcast.
Rebelled.
Yeah, rebelled. Um, but then also my team, Coach Chadwick, who I love, he's more of a what I would call a recruitment coach. And this is important for kids who are
It
looking to
is,
go
yeah.
to the States to know, is that you sort of got two types of coaches in a way on a spectrum. You got the guys who recruit big boys, like recruit all stars. And that's really what Chadwick was doing. He had guys like Alex Hartman, Chris Stahlberg, James Shortall, guys who had very, very successful junior careers.
Yep.
And once he got them into Oxford, he sort of made sure we had enough balls and enough snooze for the Swedes to practice. And he was hands off. There was no working on your game or fixing your backhand or anything. So I realized halfway through that if I wanted to play in this lineup, I needed to fix some parts of my game. And I decided, you know what, maybe it's best I go to Ty Tucker, who at the time was more of a developmental coach. He would page one your game and fix everything, even if you didn't
Yeah.
want it to be fixed.
And tell me about that, because you hear the legend stories, right? You know, as an LSU boy,
Oh yeah.
you would hear, you know, and that he put you guys through the ringer. Is what we would hear. You need work you unbelievably hard. Tell
Yeah.
us what that was like.
I mean, there was two Ty Tuckers. There was the recruiter Ty Tucker again, this was back in 2001. Recruiter Ty Tucker, he was 29 at the time, so he was one of the younger coaches, and he would dress like Slim Shady. He had the one pant leg rolled up. He had the rap music blaring. He was your best friend. He
Right.
was the guy
Okay.
you wanted to be friends with. So he recruited a lot of guys like me who rebelled and you know were talents, right? Coaches would always tell our parents, you know, he's talented, but he's got issues mentally. And so Tucker organized the team of what I called the Bad News Buckeyes. Myself, five other guys who were a handful, and then once we arrived, it was like he was the warden now, and it's like he had his
Yeah.
prisoners, and it was like, I own you guys, start running. And we were confused, but it stuck. And you know, it was definitely a militant setting. It was, you know, off the record, on the record. We weren't necessarily listening to the rules. We were practicing every day. Um, but we got better at tennis because of it. But it was a tough mental battle for sure.
And did you? I guess college as well. College is fascinating, right? Because you either some people go in and are just made for college. Like
Yeah,
I think I was made for college, especially the dual matches. It just worked for me. Like
right.
my alarm was set at 5 in the morning for game days. I was pumping the music. I was calling the team. I loved it. And then I went and played futures, and I was like, what is this? Like
Right.
what? Like how am I? How what? Like, how am
Yeah.
I ever supposed to get myself up for this? It just didn't work. And then you would have other guys that just didn't really fit the college scene.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit. There's actually a guy who you'll know maybe from Sanyan Sadovic.
Of course. Yeah, he played at LSU.
He was, yeah, with me. So Sanyan would have been a one of those for me. Like you know, bless Sanyan. And Sanyan was a great guy, but he was just, you could just tell he was like, I just want to play pro. What am I
Yeah.
doing that? Like, why am I shouting and shit? And why am I like listening to these guys? It was kind of both ways. But if you take someone like your experience where you just absolutely had it hammered into you, you hit with incredible amount of balls, ran a lot.
Hmm.
Did that lose the love of tennis for you?
Not really, to be honest. I'm one of those
Okay.
guys who would overtrain. Um,
Okay.
you know,
So you
I
were that
didn't.
way inclined. Okay.
Yeah, but I had a brittle body, so the knees gave out. And that I'm okay with the. You know, I kind of knew what I was signing up for. I knew I was signing up for a coach that I wanted to enforce some rules on me. Um, it was once I started getting injured, because when you're injured, and this is before the transfer portal and before even the word mental health, and you know, back in 2001, when you were injured, you were a wimp, or your
Really?
body was, you know, suck it up was the big thing. And I think college, because of that, only the 4 years, you feel that clock, right? I think as a tennis player, there's already that ticking clock of the window going, oh, you know, I'm here in college, and Leighton Hewitt, who's my age, is out there winning Wimbledon. I'm behind. Like, what am I doing? So once you get injured, and you're sitting on the bench, and your coach is going, why do I have a Canadian on the bench with an injury? You know, how do I get rid of this guy? There's a bit of that negative stuff that can come with that.
Yeah, no, it was. I don't know what it was like in Canada, but for me at that time, I was a failure going to college.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was very, it
You
was
feel
very
going
much
to
seen that
college
way.
is you're like, oh God, I'm going to college. You know. Yeah.
Uh,
Much very different. I just got back from the ITA indoors, and guys are speaking openly about how Wake Forest is a place that's getting you to the pros. Right? It used to be people on the team would go, yeah, you know, I'm thinking of playing futures, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. But these guys are going, you know, this is a step to the pros.
yeah,
100% the coach is trying to get them there. So I think that's changed a little bit.
I think it massively has. But I have to ask you when before I move on from Ohio State, did you guys ever win a national championships?
That's a good one.
Outdoors, by the way.
You know, that's going to be the scarlet letter. That's the popcorn kernel in Ty Tucker's back molar. He's got a couple indoors, outdoors, you know, and everyone talks about it at the tournaments. Once you get those Buckeyes out in the wind, knees start to shake, balls miss the middle of the strings. Come on, Buckeyes.
It does it. Is an indoor. I mean, it's true that it is an in. I mean, I crack. I mean, there's many things that you make me laugh on. I think you really do nail so many of these things on Instagram, and it's lovely to hear. You kind of reminisce, right? It's a bit of an oldie. You kind of out of the college years, but I reminisce, very fondly on it all. But that one really hit me because it was like it's kind of true. The indoors. National championships, is it really a thing?
You know, it's like I was equating it to like is it NITO Indoor World
Yes.
Championship? It's
Yeah.
like that's indoors. Sitsi Pass has a championship,
Yeah.
but it's called the World Championships, but it ain't the U.S. Open or it ain't Wimbledon.
Yeah, it's not quite the same. And in terms of like the skits you do,
yeah.
Give us some of the kind of funniest college isms that we see on repeat. And you've obviously been now you've been back there. You've been there last week in Dallas as well. Yeah. What are the things that just year on year never fail to kind of deliver?
Well, first you got the classic locking of horns when you meet another college player and you ask them what school they went to, and someone decides to say the geographical location or the city as if to sneak one by you. It's like, where'd you go to school? Los Angeles. UCLA? No, Los Angeles Tech. It was a little small, right? You always got to ask that other question. Yeah. That's classic. That still reigns. You got the energy, which is over the top from especially University of Kentucky. I mean, these guys are going insane after every point. I saw a couple. Yeah, they're screaming and cheering after 15 love. Right, they're going nuts. I saw a guy run out of energy from it. He got up 4 love and he literally. I'm like, this guy's gonna pass out from celebrating.
It's crazy because that was actually one of the things I had down. I said what I'd had written down here was, in our day, I remember us getting pumped up, but I only remember actually running on the court once in 4 years, and it was when we won the SEC championship. And it was like we'd beaten Florida in Gainesville, or we beat the University of Georgia maybe in Gainesville, and we'd won 4-3.
Right.
And it was genuinely like tight. And when they won, we all ran on the court, and it was like this kind of outbreak of emotion that we couldn't help. But I'm flicking through Instagram now, and I'm like, oh, right, like Penn State have beaten Daytona 6-1, and it's like, is that because we didn't capture it in our day? Were we quite like that, or do you think it has gone completely over the top on that?
There has been a bit of a shift, I think, with the attitudes in tennis. I mean, we're playing a power. I don't know. We're playing a power game now. Most guys are using the BAB a lot. You see a lot of just banging and bashing, and maybe that has added to a bit of the intensity. Because I think, I was chipping and charging, and we still had this concept of the gentleman's game, and you didn't cheer if your opponent double faulted. I remember playing in Arkansas, and we're playing in a barn, which you've probably played in Little Rock, Arkansas, and it was pouring rain outside, and it's court 1 doubles, big point, and our court 1 guy missed his first serve, and some lady in the audience starts going, double fault, double fault. And then the whole place is cheering for 2 minutes, double fault. Finally, the umpire, who's clearly was okay with it going on, quieted the audience, and then he had to hit a second serve, which, by the way, he hit a second serve ace, turned to the audience and gave him the shh.
Oh, yeah.
And that was one of the coolest college tennis moments I've ever encountered. But I think, those moments, like, that's college tennis, right?
I think probably nowadays things are being captured and shown a lot more. Huh?
Yeah.
So then my next thing on college tennis before we move into the rest of your life is around NIL.
Mm-hmm.
and name, image, and likeness.
Yes.
We're seeing like Wake Forest. We don't know for factually, but we're hearing players are getting paid 150 grand for a semester.
Yep.
Like crazy figures being thrown around. In your opinion, is this a good or a bad thing? And I guess where does it go? Where does it take it next?
I think currently it's a great thing. I think what it's doing is expanding the tennis world and making college tennis, which is a thing that I think yourself and I experience, and we know is this amazing energy, this team energy, and I think it's going to make college tennis a bit more of a must watch event because we're going to get more talent going through the college system. I even heard recently that Fonseca, this Brazilian kid who
He's all right.
can't, yeah, he can't lose a match. Uh, he's still contemplating going to University of Virginia. Like, I think in 10 years from now, maybe a guy as good as him does do a couple. Ultimately, I think he'll skip it and go pro because, I mean, he's on a one-way street to
No,
top
he's
10.
gone.
Yeah,
He's
he's
gone.
gone.
Yeah, he's gone.
But he had signed or he had committed to Virginia, and I just think that when we can pull people into the college system and get some eyes on the college game, I think it'll be good for the sport.
What about donor fatigue, though? Like in terms of
Yeah,
if you're paying 150 grand for a player on a semester,
right.
how long does that last? And then the second thing for me that again I'm not the expert on this, but from what I'm hearing, they're now giving universities the option of whether they want to give their scholarships, and you can give up to 10, I believe now,
Wow.
but you can also cut the program.
Yeah.
Is that, so it's almost, it feels like it's in a bit of a make or break period. Because I agree with you. I think it's college tennis is the gateway to professional tennis, right? And
Yeah.
I think it has been for longer than people realize. And it kind of, that whole ecosystem is linked strongly towards it, but I do wonder where it all goes.
Yeah.
I don't
No,
know what the word on that is.
right. Because you see some more you see a bunch of as much as there's some great things happening, there's some problems as well. Like you're losing that loyalty perhaps to a team. Like if I asked my friend who's the coach at Utah State, Coach Payan, I said, do you get worried when a guy starts winning that he might transfer now? And he said, absolutely. I mean, it used to be you got a guy who's winning, you get him a couple, get him the extra breadsticks at Olive Garden. Now, guy starts winning, tosses his name into the transfer portal just to see if anyone's biting. He's blowing up like a Swede on Tinder. He's got all the schools looking for him, sending him contracts. I mean, yeah, you're hearing rumors of guys basically jumping from school to school and going to whoever's offering the most money. I think that throws a wrench into the concept of school loyalty for sure.
Yeah, it does. But unfortunately mirrors life.
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
Which
I
that's
know.
the unfortunate. So that's where the Utah State thing comes from. Because I see all the Utah State and I was like, oh, does he go to Utah? So that's a friend of yours who's the coach there.
Yeah. And, on the topic of the NIL, so I'm excited about the NIL because, it's exciting where money, because I like money, but I mean, not so the fact that there's money involved in the NIL. So now what's happening is schools are using the NIL to recruit.
Yeah,
And one of the things with NIL is that you can use the name, image, and likeness, right? So
yeah,
you can use that in content, social media content, and you can
yeah.
bring in a guy like myself who can write and direct and act in the content, and I can do that for the players on the team, and then those players can build their brand, and then
Hmm.
perhaps get some sponsorship money, get some boosters behind them when they decide to go pro, or even if they're
Yes.
so it's complicated, but yeah, there's opportunity there for content.
And is that an avenue that you're looking to develop into?
Yeah, big time. Like I think again, it's all just about following my heart in a way. Like I love college tennis. I love that energy. And now that we're seeing some opportunity there,
Yep.
and I believe that with content and Instagram and everything, we're going to be able to see people who had only ever heard from their coach, oh, you should have heard about my match back at West Florida 20 years ago. Well, now your players at your club can follow West Florida and they can see how their results are going, and so that stuff's being brought to the masses now, and I'd love to be a part of that.
Well, I have to say, I think you've put yourself in pole position for that.
Yeah,
I was, I was actually a bit surprised, Connor. I was a bit surprised that you only had 80,000 followers actually on
yeah,
Instagram. Yeah, because you're everywhere.
right.
And now obviously my algorithms are tennis, right? And my
Mhm.
algorithms are college tennis or so I see, but I see you absolutely everywhere, and I hear a lot of people talking about you,
Okay.
and it's and so they should, because I think you've brought a light side to the game
Hmm.
that I think is needed as well, right?
Yeah,
It's a sport, it's a game, and before we jump into that, because that's a big area I want to talk to you about, because um, I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass. I think you're doing a great job,
cheers.
and but did you after college, did you play pro tennis after college? And kind of what was that bit, that kind of 10-15 year period? How did that look after college? And if you didn't play pro tennis, why not?
Yeah. So I wanted to play pro. I got the ATP point before going to college, and then decided to go play college. And then in college, I had in my junior year, I had a really bad knee injury,
Okay.
and I had to get knee surgery. And then that led to some pretty self-destructive behavior. I was pretty depressed from that, and
Yeah.
didn't do a really good job of bouncing back. Ended up transferring from Ohio State back to play Canadian college. And
Okay.
while playing Canadian college, I mean, I didn't lose a match, but it wasn't the real deal. It wasn't the real thing.
Yeah.
And I just sort of, at the time I was pretty down on myself, and I thought tennis was done. I had had enough, and got into, I think, with college I had to graduate, so I had my very last credit was a pop culture credit. It was the final credit to get to graduate, and it
Okay.
was 51% of your mark was to do this independent study unit, and you could do a video. And it was me, the school dealer, pot dealer, the quarterback, and just all the guys that were like, we're screwed. And I said, guys, who's got a camera? Like, I got an idea. And I'd never made a film or anything before. And anyway, we ended up shooting some video about capitalism and how America was used. Yeah, it was, classic capitalism. And I played a guy named Jim Jacobs from Oxford, Mississippi. And I was going around the world trying to sell people Nike shoes. Just got it in, and then found out I had an A+. And the teacher said, come see me. And I went to see her at her office, and she said, "You should get into film. I think, the guys said that you directed that." And I was like, "Can you get?" I didn't know. I didn't even know film was a thing. Like,
Yeah.
I was coming down off tennis. I just thought I would drift, and so I got into film. I went into film school. I did a film certificate at a film school, and then I went into improv at the Second City, which is a big improv thing in Canada. From there, long story short, I had a movie in Sundance that I acted in and wrote, and then I just became a TV writer for comedy and spent the last 15 years writing comedy. Wrote for Vince Vaughn for quite a while, and
Oh, wow.
yeah, so tennis became my escape from work, and I still kept doing it to supplement when I wasn't working in TV
Yeah.
shows and stuff, but
So you were doing what, coaching alongside that? That's the beauty of coaching as well.
yeah. Yeah, no,
And I
and
think,
and coaching made me fall back in love with tennis because now I was helping people do it, and I got to share my cautionary tales with players, and yeah,
yeah, because when I had a little look around, I came across a 2014 sketch,
okay,
uh, as in on
as in
YouTube.
okay, yeah,
Yeah, where
okay,
you were, I think some guy was spelling something out, and you
yeah,
were acting in the background, and then I'm told you were in a highly rated movie called BlackBerry in
oh yeah,
2022 as well.
yep. I was in that. Yeah, I've just had a lot of tennis friends, or sorry, friends in the film world, uh, that know me as the tennis guy. So I was the tennis guy in the movie BlackBerry.
Okay.
But yeah,
And then how has that then transformed into what you're doing now, and
Yeah.
in terms of, are you still doing the writing, or is this now something that you're moving into this whole kind of world and field yourself? What percentage of that is tennis coaching? When you set up your own Instagram, was that, I know a lot of the content was coaching tips and around that side of things before it's gone a bit more into comedy sketches? And give us that story, because I find that fascinating.
Well, I think, when you're working as a film and television writer and producer, that's one stream of life, and then you're a tennis coach as well. You sort of have two competing streams, where you're putting on a different hat, right? You're running from the tennis court to the film world, and they're sort of hermetically sealed, which is nice in one way because you get the relaxation of going to the tennis world. But on another hand, it's like it's just confusing. Like, are you a singles player or a doubles player? Like, are you a writer or a tennis player or tennis coach? So with content now, it sort of was a blessing based on a problem. A couple of years ago, 2, 3 years ago, I moved to a small town with my wife and our child to be closer to her parents just after COVID, be
Yeah.
closer to grandparents, which we need, right? And we don't have an indoor tennis facility where I am. So after I'm the head pro at a seasonal summer club, and coming to the end of the season, a friend of mine, a lesson of mine, a really smart guy, says, "Why don't you take your film life and your tennis life and merge them together as a content creator?" So I said, "Okay." I tried it. He goes, "Just the algorithm will reward you if you make 50 videos in 50 days." So I just listened to him, and I made 50 videos in 50 days. And of course, I started off being very serious because I think at the beginning you don't believe that coaching can have comedy in it, even though my whole coaching career, I've been drawn to funny coaches, and I've been the funny coach at the club. So, around the 50th video or so, I made a video about the college size up, uh, that got a couple million views, and it was a comedy video. And I realized, you know what? Let's just merge these two worlds together. Let's just go with the comedy because that's what you're good at. And yeah, so I felt like I've found a bit of a voice there.
Because I remember seeing a video of you not being funny,
Yeah,
and I was like, oh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
oh, it looked a bit out of place. I thought it was. I was like, oh, I don't want this guy to tell me how to hit a backhand slice, or
Right.
whatever it might be. I want this guy to give me a light giggle for a couple of minutes on a Tuesday morning before I go into some parent meeting, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So that, you as a coach, you mentioned it a little bit there, but like, what type of coach are you? Are you an ambitious coach? Are you a coach who just coaches anybody? Just, are you a serious coach? Are you a funny? What's your makeup as a coach? Are you the guy we see, or are
Mhm.
you something different?
I think I'm very similar to that C team coach in a way, the guy who's bringing the pop to the ladies C team. I'm that with a more of a self-awareness. Um, I believe in bringing some of that team camaraderie and that energy to clinics and teams, so I do enjoy
Yeah,
that. I have always said that I'm good with lefties because I think lefties, they tend to be hyper talented and their own worst enemies. So I can sort of placate them and create more of a relaxed environment. But I'm certainly somebody who includes humor. And when I was at the ITA indoors, I was surprised at how often these guys were laughing and having a good time on the court. And I did some traveling with the WTA tour for a while with a player, Lucy Safarova, and with Nastia Pavlenchenkova.
okay,
And their coaches, this friend of mine, Rob Steckley, who's a high
yeah,
level coach. So we're big believers in keeping our athletes relaxed with comedy, and relax. It's a relaxation technique, really. And then once they're in that relaxed state, hitting them with the good coachings. But I'm definitely not really a militant coach.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
funny you say it, because so at the WTA finals in Riyadh,
Hmm.
and I guess the one thing with the WTA finals and ATP finals, it's the only time of year you get your own space as a locker room.
Okay.
Obviously, the rest of the time you're in there with all sorts of players and, you know, coaches and whoever else it might be. And that was very much at the heart of what happened with Gabby and Erin in Riyadh. You know, it
Yeah.
was like it was in there, their own music, dancing, joking, laughing. It became like a bit of a thing when the referee knocked on the door. It was
Right.
like, yeah, you're going to be late because the music and the referee was dancing with the girls and, you know, all of those things. And then you go to the Australian Open and you're like, oh shit, where do we find space
Right.
to have that? You know, it's like it's everyone's almost. And I even looked into getting like a private physio room to turn that into a place which was our own space where, you know, they could be themselves and be their authentic selves, I guess, before their play. But I
Yeah.
think it is a challenge, right? When you're on the tour or you're in these places to get your own space to be able to do it.
Yeah.
But absolutely, I would argue that 95% of players, if not more, react better to relaxation and comedy. It's a
I
muscle
think so.
relaxing sport.
I think so. I agree for sure. You know, with the content. So one of the things that I've sort of realized is with the comedy, it's getting the attention and it's getting people to look and view. And then with the coaching, that's where I provide the value and keep people and, you know, try to guide them a little bit. So it's they both have different uses. And I think when you're with a player on the court, you know, I do like to work with beginners quite a lot. I do enjoy being the first one to put a racket into someone's hand
Yeah.
and welcoming them to this world. And they're always nervous. And you find if you make them laugh a few times, they instantly get more relaxed, which, as we know as tennis players, if you're tight and you can't play. So once you relax them, then you can get the information into the muscles. And yeah, that's a big thing, a big part of my coaching.
That was always a good friend of mine technique when he was trying to get with the ladies as well when he was younger. Make
Yeah.
them laugh and then it's there, you know?
Yeah. Get the arms open and then you sneak in. Yeah.
In terms of you've mentioned the pop and also Rosemary, you
Hmm.
know, that's those two things have become. Tell us, and those listening that aren't onto you yet, they will be
Yeah.
after they listen to this and they see the show notes and they'll be following you and they'll be laughing along and following all of your amazing content. Tell us the stories about those, and then obviously the T-shirt as well. That's
Right.
You've signed up to coming on here, so we need to get a T-shirt from you as well. You know, we need to be on
Yeah.
that list.
Your t-shirt's in the mail, Dan. It's coming. It's coming. Um, yeah, Rosemary. Look, I mean, I grew up at tennis clubs. A lot of us tennis players, we grow up at the tennis club. You got the tennis leagues that you join, and we're all just wanting to get into the lineup. And Rosemary wants to get into the lineup. Rosemary is a character who is based on a woman. So I used to coach on court 1 at a club, and there was a court 6 courts down, and the guy who ran the women's C team, Michael Emmett, played at Texas, Canadian national champion in the early '80s. Great coach. Anyway, he would yell at the ladies just like my coach did, just like my character did. I'm basically doing an imitation of him. And he would yell at them, "Come on, get through that ball. What are you doing?" And then he had Rosemary, and you could just hear whenever he yelled Rosemary, it ricocheted through the entire building. Rosemary, come on! So, so of course I do imitations of everybody I meet. That's my thing. And I had a Michael Emmett imitation. I did Rosemary and threw her into a video. And I guess every club has a Rosemary because she flew and people love her. And you know what? I love Rosemary. She's a good part of all of us tennis players. She's the one who's trying to get into the lineup. She's working hard, doesn't have the best hands at the net, but damn it, she's taking lessons and she's got the elbow brace and she wants to get the pop. So,
I and how's that like in terms of, because again it has, I guess, to use the words viral, right? If
yeah,
we talk about the social media world, it's stories like that, or it's characters like that do it. Just like, I guess, artists, right, or you know, musicians, you know, they have that one song. You know, Robbie
mhm,
Williams, Angels.
right,
Maybe it's a bad example because he was in Take That, but you know, they have that one song that then opens up.
yeah.
So who's next? You know, who's the next character that you're going to bring to us?
Well, I got a bunch. I got dropping next week. I got The Doubles Partner Who Hates You. That one I think will be pretty good. It's a lot of
Yeah,
what weird looks. I mean, I got my CEO character who's based on a character, a guy that I used to coach who was the CEO of a billion dollar company, and that one seems to be doing well. You know, he's very on the nose, and he's taking lessons with Dominic Herbati on the clay of Bratislava. And then I'm going over to see Patrick to work on my footwork. You know, he's got all the money, but no game. And then, of course, the raw dog, I think, really hits with people because we all know that guy who shows up, guy or girl, shows up, dirty skirt, average shirt, a racket they grabbed off the pro shop wall, and they beat everyone at the club, right?
yeah. That's
So
Simon Dixon. That's
is it?
Simon Dixon. Yeah, that's Simon Dixon now. Yeah, he's that guy. He rocks up, and no one will give him the time of day. Then they play him, and they're like, "Oh shit,"
Oh yeah,
like,
you're
yeah,
done.
he's that guy. And then the last couple of days, you've brought us the Serve Bot
Hmm.
in John Isner. So I guess my two part of that question is like, how have you been received in the tennis world? I'm sure you've got your network of people you knew from juniors, from college, from what you've done.
Yeah.
And then what doors are now starting to open? So tell us how the John Isner ones come about. And again, give us a little kind of synopsis on the sketches you've done with John, which are hilarious. I think they're brilliant.
Cheers. I think, you know, every now and then I look at my followers and I see a pro pop up. I think the first one that I was really excited about was when I got a Jamie Murray follow.
Yeah, he
Um,
loves your he loves he's I always see he's liked it. He likes all of your posts. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm a huge fan of the Murray brothers, and when I saw that, I was excited, and we start messaging in the chat about potential collabs, and Daniel Nestor, a Canadian doubles
Yeah.
player, another lefty. There you go. I'm a lefty
Yeah.
coach. And then John, I saw John show up, and he would start commenting, and I would comment back, and then eventually we had a couple mutual friends. One being Daniel Nestor, the former world number one doubles player. And I told John I'm going to be in Dallas at SMU for the indoors, and I asked him if he wanted to collab, and he said yes. And you know, we pitched some ideas, and then this one was a no-brainer, right? Because he is the serve bot.
How good was your volley, by the way, when you were holding the
Oh,
phone?
I'm a
That was
volley bot.
clean.
I'm a volley bot. That's what I do.
I mean, that was like, I
Cheers.
think I'm going to use that. I coach doubles players, a lot of top doubles players, but that just the way the hand went to the ball and the ball just angled off perfectly. That was like,
Yeah,
I'm going to use that one.
yeah. You can have it. You can have it. Little pop.
And how many more have we got to come? We've had two so far, haven't we? Two sketches with
We
John?
got two with John. We have a couple that we're working on. Hopefully, we can shoot them in Houston. We're going to potentially go to the Houston clay court. The men's clays there. Yeah, we got some fun serve bot stuff. You know, I equate the relationship to if you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy. It's Groot. He's Groot, the big wooden guy, and I'm the raccoon, the Rocket the raccoon. You know, feisty, taking all the celebration while he's just doing the work.
That's the number one skill of a doubles player is to pick the right partner. So you've done all right there, you
There
know.
you go. Yeah,
And in terms of what's the goal?
yeah.
What's the aim? Where's this going? You know, where's your vision taking you with all of this? Because it feels like you got a lot of momentum right now.
Well, the big one, and part of the reason why I started was I have a book that I wrote that I'm slowly releasing on Substack right now, just a few of the chapters to get a bit of a litmus test and see what people are thinking. But ultimately, I wrote a book that I'm trying to build some hype for through content.
Yeah,
It's a book about mostly about college tennis, being a journeyman in the college tennis game, making all the mistakes, growing up as a junior, playing tennis with a very comedic tone, ultimately with a mental health message to, you know, embrace the team element of tennis, even if you're an individual. You know, you got your team. You know, Sabalenka's got her team
yeah.
because too often we can get stuck in the silence of our sport and feel lonely. So ultimately, it's a book trying to help people feel more like a team. That's a big part of what I'm trying to do. And then, you know, why not keep making content and maybe make a TV show out of this or a movie? Why not, right?
Absolutely. And in kind of in terms of one of my last guests I had, I don't know if you've come across them, but the tennis brothers,
Yeah, yeah. I was just speaking with
Felix.
them last week.
Right. Yeah. I mean, thought there might be some potential collaborations there with you guys, but I had Felix on a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
And one thing that I found fascinating speaking to Felix, or just seeing that kind of concept, is he's making more money than any of these bastards out there.
right. Yeah,
Apart from the top, obviously the top 50, top 100 players, but like ultimately he's funding his tennis,
hmm,
and he's playing a dual role. He's using the dead time that we know tennis players have extremely well,
yeah,
you know. And it's very smart, right? We're in an era now where people consume content the way that they do.
yeah,
YouTube, I think, is still a bit unknown to a lot of people, but it's so big and so vast in terms of what is possible and socials. Do you think we're going to see more of this with tennis players, and obviously linking that then into the NIL, linking that into how people are going to fund their tennis careers, as one step? But then ultimately, the way I look at Felix, actually, it's not just funding his tennis career. He's a professional at what he's doing, because all right, he might be 2000 in the world, but he's making X amount of money a year doing that journey and story. So it feels like we're just scratching the surface on what's possible with this.
yeah. I think the marketable athlete is a era that we're entering, the era of the sort of the marketable athlete. You're seeing other guys like Carousel, who I'm sure is making
Yes.
good money. He's got the Lacoste sponsorship, and look, these guys in the tennis brothers, right? They're great tennis players, and they're also great content creators. They're editors. They're marketing guys who clearly have a strong sense of that, and you can help brands big. And again, thanks to social media, thanks to our world expanding, you've got these local heroes and niche heroes that are really exciting. I think also with college tennis, you got the IRL, as they call it, the in real life experience that people want. And if I can go watch a college match and see a guy play, and then I can follow that player, and then they're making comedy videos, and then they're selling a shirt, and they're driving a Ford, like, yeah, there's big plays in that.
Absolutely. And tennis as a whole,
Hmm.
the tennis industry, the
Yeah.
not just the what state do you think it's in right now?
Oi, I mean, we've just had the top woman and the top man get busted for contamination. It's a little dire. Um, I hope we figure this out. I think ultimately it's healthy. Okay, if you look at tennis right now, we've got two guys busted, two players and then some busted for contamination. So right away we're going, what's wrong with our drug testing system? We're going to figure that one out. Pickleball's given us a bit of a kick in the pants. Um,
Do you think it is?
well,
I'm in Spain. I'm in Europe. When I go to Indian Wells, where I'll be there in a couple of weeks. All of a sudden, I go, shit.
yeah,
What's this sport that
yeah,
you can in Palm Springs? You just hear it like ringing around Palm Springs. It's so loud, and
of
so many
course.
people are playing pickleball there. But do you think it is giving tennis a bit of a kicking, bit of a run for the money?
I think it's good. I think you go through these little cycles, and I think politics go through this, tennis goes through this, where you're dominating, and then you get a little too you fly a little too close to the sun, perhaps, and then you have to go back and deconstruct and figure out how you can get back on the horse. I think tennis right now, it's got a lot of great things happening, but pickleball has made us go, okay, wait a minute, why are people going there instead of here? So I think it's making us ask questions that we will answer. I think the solution is more team tennis, as you I'm bullish on, like with college tennis and
Yeah.
NIL, et cetera. And then I think that this doping stuff is going to make us ask questions. We're going to have to educate the masses on, okay, what is banned, why is it banned? Like, I was thinking yesterday, I could make a video about random substance and I could name it, and it's like, well, why is this banned? Well, you drink it through your tea, and like, you're getting it. I haven't figured out the idea yet, but you can you can
It's an
start to wonder. It's like,
exclusive.
yeah, it's like, well, there's this endless list of banned substances that we're all supposed to just understand. It's confusing.
It is. And I actually was gonna what I had out. So we got a couple of quick fire rounds to finish,
Yeah.
and one of the quick fire rounds was giving your quick opinion, and the first one was Yannick Sinner, but you've kind of touched on that.
The Grim Reaper just brings death to you. He can't do anything about him.
The mixed doubles change at the US Open. We're talking about we have to innovate. Obviously, that's not just at the pro level. Obviously, that's at club level, schools level, whatever it is to get people into the sport. But I spoke to Eric Budarak the other day about this, and the one thing is for sure, this change that they're making at the US Open, it's disruption, right? It's disruption to the history of the sport. It's going to have quite a polarizing thought process, but they are trying to change something, I guess. What's your take on that?
I kind of like it. I like the idea that we're doing mixed doubles, trying to get some eyes on mixed doubles. I watched, was it Tsitsipas and Badosa versus TFO and another pro? And I liked it. I think that's what they're doing, right? Like now it's going to be 1 week, the first week of the US Open.
So what they're doing, they're doing 2 days. It's actually 2 days.
That's it?
So it's 8 singles pairs. So on singles ranking and 8 wild cards, of which I've been told by Eric that in year 1 that will be predominantly singles players. They've had it's a big pot. I think there's 2.4 million going into it, 1 million for the winning pair. ESPN have bought into it. Prime time on Wednesday night. They've changed the format, so it's fast 4 format up until the final. And it's going to be 2 days. The singles guys didn't want to play it after Wednesday, so it's Tuesday and Wednesday. And I guess I don't want to go into my opinions too much. I spoke about this in the podcast a couple of days ago, but it's not really a Grand Slam, I don't think, but I think it is. But what I do think it is a highly entertaining event that is going to get eyes on our sport.
Yeah, I think, so from that standpoint, that's where I'm excited, is that we're going to get some eyeballs on the mixed doubles. I think ultimately, Gabby Dabrowski, best mixed doubles player in the world, your player. I watched her play.
We're pushing for that wild card.
She better get it. I'll tell you right now, and I'll help you make content if that helps to get that, because she's amazing. I was watching her play at the Olympics, and she was carrying the team, and I can tell. People think, oh yeah, the woman's just no. Gabby, you carry your mixed doubles partner. I watched it happen. There is a tragedy, I guess, with doubles, right? And we know that I'm a doubles specialist. Tragically, you don't want to become one, you just become one. And then it was like, how did this happen?
Because you pop the volleys. That's why.
Volley. But then you got, Federer and Djokovic lose to Eagle and Johnson, and the audience go, "Aw," right? But that's the dichotomy. That's the truth of it. And I think with mixed doubles, they have a little bit of that. So bringing some of the top players over to it, I think it's good. But you're right. I don't know if it's like you just want to slam. That's a bit different.
It is. It's going to be interesting. But we need to push for Felix and Gabby. That's the wild card that we're pushing for. Get the Canadians in that 16. The next one, we've talked about him a little bit, but I don't know how much you've seen of him. João Fonseca.
Yes. I've just seen the 1 minute of Fonseca ripping forehand winners on there's a video going around.
You don't need to see any more.
Yeah. You just know. When you know. He's top 5 material. Yeah. Is he number 1? Maybe. We'll see. I haven't seen enough of him. I saw him make his run at the Australian Open. I think right now we're in a weird little place where Sinner definitely has pulled away, but is Sinner going to dominate tennis for the next 20 years? I don't know. Alcaraz, we kind of want him to, because he's got a bit more pizzazz. Fonseca sort of feels like a bit of both. I think they'll be the top 3 guys in the world. What do you think?
Well, I think Fonseca potentially has more pizzazz than Alcaraz.
Yeah.
He is a phenomenon. He just makes that ball move from any part of the court, but he has this incredible personality to go with. And I think it was Andy Murray tweeted the other day I can't. When I always think Murray gets it right. I think Andy's tennis opinion is
Yeah.
spot on, and he said, "I can't wait for the first Alcaraz Fonseca matchup."
Oh yeah.
And I think it is. It's taking. I think it's taking the men's game to a bit of a different level, actually, in terms of what they're doing. But what I like about both of them, right? We've talked a lot about fun and relaxation, and look, at the end of the day, we're hitting fluffy bloody balls over the net in between white lines, right?
Exactly.
When there's all of this shit going on in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And these two kind of bring that to the court as well. They, like Alcaraz would almost sacrifice a point for a tweener, or he'll sacrifice a point to, hit the hardest forehand of the day. And I think that they're box offers, not just for the results that they get, but for the entertainment they bring. So I have no doubts. I have no doubts with Fonseca. He's going to be a Grand Slam winner. No doubts. He's proper.
The next Guga, but with a two-hander.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the last one, before I do jump into our actual quick fire round that we do all the time on the podcast, and that is, how does tennis market itself better? You're someone who obviously has a background in that, and how you're bringing things alive. I think tennis in general is a bit old fuddy-duddy. We're a little bit behind in those. If I give you the reins to the ATP and WTA, and I said, "Come on, Conor, we're gonna get tennis on the map. We're gonna get it going up against the NBA, against the Premier League football, against the NFL," how would you go about it?
Whew. The team element to me just feels like it's being done properly in college. When you look at world team tennis, they don't do it the same way. They use one court, and they're cycling players onto that court. I think what I would definitely pilot would be 4 or 5 matches happening simultaneously with big names. So let's say I could do whatever I wanted. Tomorrow I throw a event in, let's go Madison Square Garden. I don't know if there's enough space, but let's line up 3 courts, and let's go Wawrinka versus Monfils, Fonseca versus Alcaraz, Sinner versus Paul, and they're all happening at the same time. And 3 guys are on a team, and these guys are on a team, and they're cheering, they're shouting down to each other just like they did at LSU, and they're just having a blast. And you can walk around and watch all these matches, and you don't have to worry too much about being, dead silent. I think there's something fun about that. Trying more of that stuff could be really exciting. Just keep educating people on college tennis. That's to me where the excitement is, and I like that as sort of a farm team to the pros. I think if we start recognizing guys are playing college, and then we get to track their journey into the pros, that's exciting as well.
And what about content collection?
Content collection?
Yeah, like in terms of getting content out there, I sat in a meeting in Australia last year with the new she was the new head of marketing for WTA.
Okay.
And we sat there, and in Australia they have all the cameras everywhere. And one of the complaints from the players was there's no privacy. I think we saw Vondrousova in tears, or we saw Sabalenka smash a racket in the gym.
Yeah.
We saw these things, and the coaches and the players were complaining. And I said, well, hold on. I said, you can't have one without the other. You're talking about trying to put our sport out there and get people to connect. People are connecting with real life, right? Okay. People want to connect with what's going on. I said that those cameras are giving us that insight to get to know the players. And the head of marketing next to me nudged me, and she went, "You're speaking my language,"
right.
And I think there has been some positive changes, but it feels like that side of things, and us getting to know the players, like we've got to know Rosemary, like we're getting to know Raw Dog, like how do the WTA ATP bring that alive a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, look, what I say is I bring the Hawkeye camera to the minutia of our world. That's what I'm doing. I'm all about putting it all out there, showing all of the things we do. Be that naked Swede walking around the bathroom, nothing to hide here, man. I think they're great. I'm not a big fan of, like, more privacy, more privacy, more curated, more curated. I think that
No,
stuff, yeah, you got to expect the cameras. Once you walk onto the U.S. Open site, you got a little sign that says it might be caught on camera, and you just deal with it.
yeah, we want to feel it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
And those narrative, that's how to what you're saying, like the B-roll only gets you so much, the shots of the backhand and the forehand. It's those narratives where you're really being honest about the characters. That's where people are going to get engaged in our sport.
100%. Conor, are you ready for our quick fire round?
Let's do it.
It's as quick as you want it to be.
All right.
And Andy Murray took 25 minutes, but he's a very considered individual on
He's a
this.
grinder.
Yeah. Roger or Rafa?
Roger.
Serena or Venus?
Venus, because she follows me on Instagram.
Oh, you can be bought. I see how it is. Net cord or not?
Net court. You got to play those like that. They're exciting.
Like
Let it hit the
college.
net and take the serve. Is that what we're talking? Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Medical timeout or not?
You should be allowed one medical timeout. Yeah.
Serve or return?
Serve bought life, baby. I was one of those guys who hit 30 aces and lost the set 7-6, so I'm all about the serve.
College tennis or pro tennis?
College tennis all day, baby.
Singles or doubles?
I want singles, but, I pop volleys. I like being social. Doubles. It keeps you, it's healthy. Regardless, all your tennis life leads to doubles, right? When you're older, you're going to be playing doubles. So
that's what we're all preparing for.
yeah, all tennis leads doubles words.
What does control the controllables mean to you?
Handle the things in your life that you can handle, like the concrete. You can handle what time you wake up in the morning. You can set your alarm for that time. You can handle what you're going to ingest. You can sort of handle the shoes you're going to wear and the drills you're going to do. And I think that type of stuff, being able to control those things, creates a sense of peace in you. So yeah, I like it as an expression.
Nice. If you could steal one shot from another player and add it to your game, whose would it be and why?
Why am I thinking Jack Sock's forehand? I never had a forehand, and it's like me wanting the Jack Sock forehand is like a guy wanting a Lamborghini. It's like I could just go for a nice car, but no, give me the fastest, most destructive one. I want to feel that power.
And can't believe you've gone to his podcast mate when you've just had John Isner on your side the last 2 days.
I can
John's
serve.
not going to be happy.
Serving's more about variety, if you ask me.
And are you happy?
Yeah, definitely. It fluctuates, but having a daughter definitely is a blessing that keeps you happy. I mean, if you can just sit there, and the other day she got a certificate for finishing her gymnastics, and that made me happier than winning my under-18 national championship. So, it's awesome. The little things.
And how old is she?
She's 2.
2?
Yeah.
Do you have a racket in her hand yet?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Would you like her to go tennis route?
Definitely need to lay the foundation for the technique early. We know as tennis coaches that if you don't learn how to serve before 16, you're not going to get that pop. So we got to lay that foundation early. We got to get the smooth technique into the muscle memory, and then she can decide what she wants to do with it.
What month is she born in?
She's in March, so she's just turning 2. Yeah.
So you had this planned early year. You don't want I've got 3 kids. One's November 23, one that's November 30. I'm like, what are we? What kind of tennis parents are we?
Yeah, late in the season.
You've planned it. What's one rule change that you would have in tennis?
Definitely the let court. I would think we would play. Yep. I think you could play that. I would maybe even get rid of the first serve and just go one serve. I've heard it. I've heard people thinking about it. I mean, I got a lot of rules I would change. I would go one serve.
Let's get them all out.
Yeah, one serve. You're allowed to talk during the points. The audience can talk. They can't taunt. Like they can't but they can talk.
Double fault.
Yeah, maybe not that. I'd even go in Davis Cup or team tennis. You're allowed to sub in a player on your team. That's a starter kit right there.
And who should our next guest be on Control the Controllables? Now, you have to be a little bit careful here because in the small print says you are responsible for them to help them come on the show. So somebody answered this as Donald Trump once, and it was like, well, one, I'm not sure I need Donald Trump on Control the Controllables, but two, I'm not sure you've got the power to get Donald Trump. So what have you got? What can you open up for us?
Well, I would say Daniel Nestor, but he's just going to come on here and tell you why the World Trade Center was an inside job. So that would be weird. Danielle Collins, I like the spark that she's creating right now. She was going to retire from tennis a year and a half ago, and now she's dominating and bugging some people and other people. I just like the American feistiness she brings. I think that would be an interesting interview.
Do you have the hookup?
No, but I'm willing to help.
I coached against a first round Australian Open this year.
Boy.
Now look in double. Now luckily I didn't give too much eye contact, so I've not fallen out with her. So that's certainly a possibility.
Yeah, see what the feist. See if the feist is real.
Absolutely, Conor, you've been a star, mate, and I honestly, from the bottom of my heart, a big thank you for what you're doing. I think it's brilliant. I really mean that. I was so excited that we got you on the podcast because I watch those videos and I smile, and I often laugh, but more than anything, I think what it does actually, it knits together. The best comedy for me is the comedy of things that happen that you can relate to, right? Yeah. And it's because it helps us reminisce and it helps us experience those emotions that we've all had through this incredible sport, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of cynics in the world of tennis, but actually this is an incredible sport that gives us so much.
Yeah.
And thank you for bringing that through in such a light-hearted way. And please keep doing what you're doing.
Hey, if people can recognize some of the silly things that I'm showing on my page in themselves and then have a sense of humor about it around the club, I think tennis will be a better place.
Top man. Good luck
Cheers.
with it all and let's stay in touch.
Thanks, Dan.
So there we have it. Coach Conor Casey, a big thank you for coming onto the show. Someone I saw this week, he was on the Tennis Channel commenting on the mixed doubles, the doubles scenario that's happened. Riley Opelka has made these big sweeping statements once again on that. And I've had quite a few people asking me, what do I think of Riley Opelka and what he said? Now, look, in some ways, I quite like it. I quite like that we have outspoken players that get these discussions going, right? And I'm sure there's a bit of tongue-in-cheek from Riley. I find it hard to believe that he's that incredibly arrogant that he truly believes what he said. And he's basically said that, there's no such thing as a doubles player. They're just failed singles players. Now, for someone who's not really turned up on the big stage and isn't really bringing in, and I guess this is the point that I want to make. If Carlos Alcaraz is making a statement like that, then I'm maybe listening, because I'll talk about this a lot. The traveling circus of the ATP Tour, the WTA Tour, we're all one team, right? We're all making a living. We're all having these incredible experiences. But there's some stars of the show, and there's some people that are demanding the ticket. Just if you go and watch football, you in Saudi Arabia right now, you're paying to see Cristiano Ronaldo, but the tickets are selling out because there happens to be another 21 players on the pitch, and that's the same, if we're being brutally honest, with the ATP WTA. But I find it hard when there's a singles player that, let's be honest, isn't drawing a crowd. Maybe they are in their home country, maybe, but we also have just seen this week, Melo and Matos winning in Rio, the doubles, and it was as if they've just won the Olympics. It was incredible. So you're always going to get those localized stars, but when we're talking about global stars that are bringing bums on seats. They're bringing broadcasting rights. There's very, very few. There's the superstars at the very top of the game in the men and women's game. Them I'll listen to. But anyone underneath that, no, I'm sorry, I'm not listening to it, And I would then just have the singles players that are lower ranked in the same bracket as the doubles players as well, and they have to create their own value, as we've talked about before. But that was one that's jumped out. Sorry, I wasn't expecting to say that, but this is obviously something of passion of mine. But back to Conor Casey, a great guest and someone who brings that light energy to the sport. I said it to him, but I meant it truly. I see his reels on Instagram, and nearly every time I have a little smile on my face, especially as someone that's been to college and understands college tennis so well. I can relate to so many of his little videos that he brings together. And yeah, he's someone that, again, is shining a light on our sport. So a big shout out to Conor for that. Keep up the good work. He sees the opportunity in that with college tennis, now with the NIL. And I love how these synergies start to open. And that's what our industry needs. Our industry doesn't need to just get bogged down on who wins every tennis match. Of course, the industries are bigger than that. There's many, many different aspects to it, and I love to see these doors open, and I love that we're able to bring these stories to you. So I hope it's inspired somebody, and I hope people can see that there is lots of aspirational ways of making money from this sport that don't just require being bloody good at hitting that tennis ball over the net and being at the absolute cream of our sport. We have 250 coming up next. We are trying to get certain guests. We've had conversations. We have had a yes from the Bryan brothers, which I'm really excited to bring to you. But in this day and age, you get a yes, and then it's quite hard to then close the deal on exactly when it's going to happen. So we've got a couple more guests lined up that I'm going to be speaking to next week. I hope that I'll get to the Bryan brothers in time to make it that magical 250. But I guess at that kind of quarter century point, it's no, more than quarter century. What am I talking about? Quarter 1,000 point. There's a real kind of gratitude that I have for all of you guys that continue to make this podcast what it is. Please do continue to rate, to like, to review, to get in touch with us. We love our community at Control the Controllables, and we love you guys very much for being a part of that. But until next time, I'm Dan Kiernan, and we are Control the Controllables.